Afia, what is this? Aqua screamed, dropping the tray of drinks she was carrying. You are pregnant? How could you keep this from me? How? When did this happen? Who did this to you? A long time ago, in the quiet village of Koforidua, nestled among the lush hills of the eastern region of Ghana, lived a widow named Aqua and her only daughter, Afia. Aqua's life had been marked by hardship since the untimely death of her husband, Kweko. When Kweko passed away, his family, driven by greed, descended upon Aqua's modest home. They took everything, his small cocoa farm and land, and even the house she had lived in since their marriage. With nothing left, Aqua was forced to leave Koforidua. She and Afia moved to the bustling city of Accra, where they rented a tiny room in the crowded neighborhood of Nima. Life in Accra was nothing like the peaceful life they had known. The city was unforgiving, and Aqua struggled to make ends meet. To survive, she started hawking drinks and bottled water. At the bus park in Kanshia, the days were long and the earnings were little, but it was all she could do. Afia, who was just 14 years old, had to drop out of school because Aqua could no longer afford the school fees. This broke Aqua's heart, as she had always dreamed of giving her daughter a good education. Afia was a bright girl, full of potential, and Aqua knew that without an education, her future would be bleak. Every morning, before the sun had risen, Aqua would leave their small room, a heavy tray of drinks balanced on her head. She would walk to Kanshia, navigating the crowded streets of Accra. The noise, the heat, and the constant jostling of the crowds made her walk exhausting, but Aqua never complained. She knew she had to be strong for Afia. Afia, left alone during the day, did her best to help around the house. She would clean, fetch water, and sometimes cook simple meals like gari, beans. But without school to occupy her time, she often found herself wandering the neighborhood, longing for the days when she could sit in a classroom and learn. Aqua's earnings were barely enough to cover their rent and buy food. They lived on a diet of plain rice, kenke, and sometimes, when they were lucky, a little fish. Life was a constant struggle, but Aqua always reassured her daughter that things would get better even when she wasn't sure about it. One afternoon, while Aqua was busy selling her drinks at the bus park, a man approached Afia. His name was Kwame, and he was different from the other men in the area. He was well dressed with a smooth-talking manner that immediately put Afia at ease. He began to visit the bus park regularly, always with a smile and a small gift for Afia: a bottle of soda, a bag of chips, or a few CDs. Kwame's kindness stood out in the harsh world that Afia had come to know. He would sit and chat with her, asking her about her life and her dreams. Afia, lonely and longing for attention, began to trust him. He spoke of how he could help her, how he could provide a better life for her and her mother. Aqua noticed Kwame's attention towards her daughter, but did not see anything wrong with it at first. She was too busy trying to make ends meet to give it much thought. Kwame's small gifts were a welcome relief, and he seemed to genuinely care for Afia. As the weeks turned into months, Kwame's relationship with Afia grew closer. He started taking her out after Aqua had gone home for the day. They would go to the market where he would buy her new clothes and shoes. He even gave her a mobile phone, something she had never dreamed of owning. Afia was swept off her feet by Kwame's attention. He told her that he loved her, that he would take care of her, and that she didn't have to worry about anything. Afia, young and naive, believed every word. She kept her relationship with Kwame a secret from her mother, afraid that Aqua would disapprove it. It wasn't long before Afia realized she was pregnant. Fear gripped her heart. She didn't know what to do or who to turn to. The once kind Kwame started to change as well. He became distant, and when Afia told him about the pregnancy, he dismissed her concerns, telling her to deal with it herself. Terrified and ashamed, Afia hid her pregnancy from her mother. She wore loose clothing and avoided being seen by anyone who might notice. But as the month passed, it became harder and harder to conceal the truth. The baby growing inside her was a constant reminder of her mistake, and she lived in fear of the day her mother would find out. Aqua noticed the change in her daughter. Afia had become withdrawn, spending most of her time in their small room. She no longer helped with the housework, and her once cheerful demeanor had faded. Aqua's concern grew, but she was too consumed with the daily struggle to probe deeply into what was troubling her daughter. One evening, as they sat together, eating a simple meal of boiled plantain and consomme stew, Aqua finally asked Afia what was wrong. "My daughter, you have not been yourself lately. Please tell me what is going on with you." Afia looked at her mother, tears welling down her face. But she couldn't bring herself to say the words. She simply shook her head and muttered, "I'm fine, Mama." Aqua knew something was seriously wrong, but she didn't push further. She prayed that whatever was bothering her daughter would pass. As Afia entered her 9th month of pregnancy, her secret was no longer possible to hide. One evening, as Aqua was returning home from the bus park, she noticed her daughter's swollen belly. The truth hit her like a bolt of lightning. "Afia, what is this?" Aqua screamed, dropping the tray of drinks she was carrying. "You are pregnant? How could you keep this from me? How? When did this happen? Who did this to you?" Afia broke down in tears, unable to speak. The weight of her mother's anger and disappointment was too much to bear. She had failed her mother, and now she was facing the consequences of her actions. Aqua's heart was shattered, and she sacrificed so much to provide for her, only to be met with this. The thought of how they would survive with another mouth to feed was overwhelming. "Who did this to you, my daughter?" she demanded, her voice trembling with anger and pain. Afia could not answer. She was too ashamed to reveal that it was Kwame, the man who had promised her the world, but had left her with nothing but a broken heart and a growing belly. A few days later, after much pleading and questioning, Afia finally revealed the truth. It was Kwame, the same man who had showered her with gifts and promises. Aqua screamed in disbelief, her cries echoing through the small room. Kwame, that man, he has brought shame to me and to our family. Aqua cried. She cried out, her voice filled with sorrow. He will never, never in his life know peace for what he has done to you. Afia's confession only deepened Aqua's despair. The betrayal was too much to bear. She had trusted Kwame, and now she was left with a daughter who was about to give birth and no means to support her. Afia, her mother, called her out. You must take me to Kwame's house because he can't get you pregnant and leave you to suffer like this. You can see our situation right now. We barely afford what to eat, not to talk of adding another mouth into this troubled situation we are into. Afia looked at her mother, very scared of what to say. Did you hear what I'm saying, Afia? You better get ready. Let's go right away. As they get to Kwame's house, they knocked at Kwame's door, but one of the neighbors came to tell them that Kwame is no longer here, that he left few days ago and said he was relocating to another city. This got Aqua devastated. Afia fell on the ground and wept. The days that followed were filled with tension and tears. Aqua could hardly look at Afia without feeling a deep sense of loss and betrayal. The weight of their suffering was tripled, and Aqua felt as if the walls of their tiny room were closing in on her. Soon after the confession, Afia went into labor. The room was filled with the sounds of her pain and Aqua's desperate prayer with no money to go to a hospital. Aqua had to deliver the babies herself, relying on the little knowledge she had. To Aqua's shock, Afia didn't give birth to just one child, but triplets for that matter. The tiny infants, 2 boys and a girl, cried out weakly. As they entered the world, Aqua held them in her trembling hands, her mind racing with thoughts of how they would survive. My God, how can I take care of all of you? Aqua cried, her voice breaking with the weight of her despair. The sight of the 3 newborns only deepened her pain. How could she possibly provide for them? How could she protect her daughter and these innocent lives? Aqua wept as she wrapped the babies in the only blanket they had. Her heart was heavy with sorrow, and she couldn't see any way out of their situation. Days passed, and the situation in their small room grew even more desperate. The babies needed constant care and affection, and Afia was too weak and inexperienced to manage on her own. Aqua did her best, but her strength was waning. They had no money, no food, and no support. One afternoon, as Aqua sat on the floor, feeding the triplets with what little she had, there was a knock on the door. It was Amma, a woman who lived in the same compound. Amma had heard about Afia's situation and had come to offer her help. Amma was a kind-hearted woman, known in the neighborhood for her generosity. She had connections in the city and often helped those in need. When she saw the state Aqua and Afia were in, her heart went out to them. Auntie Aqua, Amma said softly, entering the room, I heard about what happened. Please, let me help you. I know a woman, Madaya, who is very wealthy. She can help you and Afia. She has helped others before. Aqua, too tired and desperate to refuse, agreed. She had no choice but to accept any help that came their way. Ama took Aqua and Afia to meet Madam Ya, a successful businesswoman who owned several shops in Accra. When Madam Ya heard their story, she was moved by their plight. "Don't worry," Madam Ya said, her voice full of compassion. "I will help you. You and your daughter can come and stay with me. I will provide for the children, and Afia can go back to school." Aqua could hardly believe her ears. After so much suffering, was there really hope for them? She thanked Madam Ya profusely, tears streaming down her face. True to her word, Madam Ya took them into her home in East Legon. The change in their circumstances was immediate. The babies were well fed, were taken care of, and Afia, for the first time in months, felt a sense of relief. Madam Ya arranged for Afia to return to school, covering all the expenses. Aqua, no longer burdened with the daily struggle to survive, found work in one of Madam Ya's shop. For the first time in years, she felt like she could breathe. Life slowly began to improve for Aqua and Afia. The triplets, Kweku, Kwembena, and Aqua, grew healthy and strong under Madam Ya's care. Afia threw herself into her studies, determined to make the most of the second chance. At school, Afia was a diligent student, eager to learn and make up for the time she had lost. The other students were curious about her story, but Afia kept to herself, focused on her education and the future she was building for her children. Aqua, now working in Madam Ya's shop, learned the business and found a new sense of purpose. She was grateful for the opportunity to provide for her family in a way she never thought possible. But despite their new circumstances, the memories of the past still haunted them. Kwame, the man who had deceived Afia, had left a scar that time alone could not heal. Years passed, and Afia's hard work paid off. She graduated from school and went on to study nursing, a career she had always dreamed of. Her children, now older, were thriving, and Aqua couldn't be prouder of the woman her daughter had become. On the day of Afia's graduation from nursing school, Madam Ya and Aqua sat in the audience, their hearts filled with pride. Afia stood before the crowd, her 3 children by her side, and spoke of the journey she had taken. "I stand here today because of the love and support of my mother and Madam Ya," Afia said, her voice steady with emotion. "They believed in me when I had nothing, and they gave me the strength to rise above my circumstances." Aqua, sitting in the audience, wiped tears from her eyes. The pain of the past had not been forgotten, but it had been transformed into a story of triumph. Their suffering had been turned into strength, and their love for each other had carried them through the darkest times. As they celebrated that day, surrounded by friends and family, Aqua felt a deep sense of peace. The journey had been long, but it has led them to a place of happiness and fulfillment. Afia's future was bright, and her children would grow up in a world filled with love and opportunity. And so, the story of Aqua and Afia which began in sorrow and despair, ended in joy and triumph. Their lives had been changed forever by the kindness of one woman and the strength they found in each other. The future was no longer something to fear, but something to look forward to with hope and joy. Thank you so much for watching this story. I hope you enjoyed it. And please do not forget to drop in the comment section what you learned about this story. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and also share to your friends and loved ones until I bring another heartwarming, beautiful story your way. Bye.